I'll get going so I can do my introductory stuff, and then I'll turn it over to Nick. So, thank you all for being here this evening. I'm sure that some of you will find this thought-provoking. I hope that everyone will find it interesting. Not that there's any pressure.
Yeah, none at all.
I want to do a bit of an advertisement for the next session, which will be our final session of the sort of year as we go quiet for the summertime. And Alexei Ziegloff is coming to talk about what is the current state of thought and an evolution in the Kanban world. Alexei, we're fortunate enough to have locally, but he's sort of emerging as one of the thought leaders in David Anderson's Kanban organization. And he's freshly back from both Lean Kanban North America, followed by the Lean Kanban Leadership Retreat. So he will have the latest word on what people are thinking about in the Kanban world. And so that will be kind of promising. As a bit of a plug for Alexei, he does training, and he is proposing a training course here in KW. There's two benefits. First of all, it's in Canadian dollars, and second of all, it doesn't require any travel. So I put links in both in the meeting announcement, and I sent out an email to all the members to let them know he's offering a 20% discount on top of all of that. So if you're curious about Kanban and want some training, there's an opportunity to do it with at least me.
And when is he here?
What's that?
When is he here?
He's here June 28th.
The training, I think, is the 27th, 28th.
Yeah, same week.
I signed up for it. So, yeah.
Awesome. So I've already thanked Unicron. They continue to support us nicely. I also want to thank Viv and Red, our Communitech support team, for continuing to make sure that I have a room. And Anne-Marie, who is absent, unfortunately. She seems to be on the road quite a bit these days. Without further ado, I will introduce you to Nick Hodson, a few in the room. Oh, sorry, I have one last thing. Nick has agreed to have this recorded. If anybody in the room has objection to being recorded during the Q&A period, then we can avoid doing that. But the recording is generally for personal use, but will probably, if not likely, be put up on YouTube. So if anybody doesn't want to be recorded or filmed, put up your hand now, please. Otherwise, we'll just let it roll. Okay? Good. Thank you. Nick is in charge of product development at D2L and has been there a little over 3 years now, and has overseen monumental change in the way that software and product is developed and built at D2L. Full disclosure, I work for Nick and have the good fortune to
I'm cheap to come here.
I have the good fortune to have him support many of the initiatives that I try to inject and the ideas that I'm trying to inject into D2L about how we can organize work differently. So I continuously hear from people that in the Lean Agile community, we get it. The people who are trying to change things, but the executive doesn't get it. They don't understand what it is we're trying to do, why it is we're trying to do it, and how much better life would be. So I was speaking with Nick and said, you're an executive, you get it, maybe you can come and talk to us and share a little bit about what led him there and what might help you lead your organization down the path that we're following.
Thank you. We'll ramble for 40 40 to 45 minutes maybe. I'm now much more nervous in the room, given that I have several people who I'm good friends with in this room who also know as much or more than I do. So hopefully we'll talk about something new for everyone. Just by people in the room, what's a like sort of big company, small company, startup? What kind of like big company? Who's represents big company? Okay, cool. And what's some sort of the medium or smaller kind of company, startup kind of company? Okay, so a few. Okay, cool. And so it's way different depending on the context you're operating in. Right? So Andrew came in and said, "Hey Nick, can you come and talk a little bit about, the problem of convincing people that doing things agile is worthwhile, and what the hell does that even mean, and all those wonderful things that we probably run into on a daily basis." I have had the good fortune of doing it 6 or 7 times now, multiple times at the same company, because they don't always stick, right? So when you start trying to change sort of the way that you operate, change sort of the way that you behave, I think I'm convinced that it takes a couple good runs at it before you've gotten sort of some of the things and behaviors to stick, and ultimately it's a lot about culture change and behavior. So that said, I guess there's a whole bunch of different sort of areas that we can talk to. I have as a sort of a starting point, I have a particular opinion about sort of engineering and sort of engineering models that I think is sort of like a weird one. But a long time ago, we used to have models where everything we did was very much about you were the expert and you did all the work and you built that up, and that was the pre-industrial age master apprentice model, and that's the way you behaved, right? The person that knew everything, did all the job, brought someone on and they learned all the job, and that's how that knowledge transferred, that's how work got done, and it was not really specialized, and some problems with it. And then the Industrial Revolution came along and a lot of things changed about how people act and work together, and we said, well, we can't afford to spend 20 years training people up to know all the aspects of the job, so we specialized and became very siloed, and that became the way that the Industrial Revolution became very, very successful. The interesting thing I find, and I think that the problem is that we still hold on to that particular model as we work in software, and software is trying really desperately to move beyond that model. The other interesting thing about that is those changes take decades to have happen. They're not something that happens quickly, and so we're probably 20 years into an agile sort of change, and I think 20 years from now, no one will ever dispute that it wasn't the way to do things. Right? The whole concept of team success, the whole concept of specialized expertise in contributing to a particular outcome as a group is sort of the way that it seems to make human sense to deal with any of these problems. But I think there's lots of people who don't believe that, or a lot of people who think efficiency, you can get more out of people if you don't work as a team, or if you don't do pair programming, or all the things that you hear as reasons on why you can't really work like that. So some of the things that I guess Andrew wanted me to share was just things that work from the perspective of convincing people these are the right things. And I know there's some people in the room who have gone through this and socialized this particular area for their companies, or helped me do it at D2L. I'm looking at some of the people, and helped make it be the way that we tend to operate. And it's also I also make no disclaimer that D2L is not even close to being finished. We're still doing lots of different journeys along the path to how do we work well together, and how do we be agile. So some of the things that came on earlier when I first joined D2L, we had just sort of gone through, I think, starting the second incarnation of trying to do agile software development. And there was lots of things, and lots of the guys said, well, that's what we want to do, so therefore we can just do that, right? So there's the common problem of I've said agile, therefore it must be. And I think everybody's sort of probably in the room run up against that particular problem where, and that's a change management problem, right? People believing that it's easier to do it, or to say it than do it. In my past experience, I've had people say, can we just buy everybody a book on Agile and then everybody's good, and we don't have to do training, we don't have to understand it, we just have to educate people, and people just need to read and figure it out for themselves. So when I joined, they were sort of in lots of different sort of fits and starts, right? From a perspective of how the teams were structured, they weren't sort of functioning as a actual team unit. There was lots about, we just bought a tool. We're buying a tool to track all our stuff. in an agile way, and so we went with Rally. It doesn't matter really what you use, whether you use Trello or other things, but anyway, so ultimately they bought some tools and they said, hey, great, we're going to go there, and they just spent a bunch of money to actually bring in a consultant. And that was one of the best things to sort of start that journey. Now, in the conversation with them, the part of the problem was that Agile means different things to everybody, especially executives, right? And so it's good when you can find people like myself or others in some level of position in a company that understand what it means as opposed to the words or what you call it or what it breaks down into, the different practices or behaviors or tool sets or how you run meetings and whatever, right? It's more of the goal is always about how do we do things more effectively with communication and collaboration and working together. The goals are always about how do I deliver more accurate, faster value to market. It's all things you know fundamentally, right? This is the point of it. But those things aren't the things that a lot of people talk about when they're trying to get Agile buy-in from, our CEO or whatever. Like it's not about that. It's about, we need to be Agile because then I can get more features done, or I can get more teams working on more things and changing their mind all the time or whatever, right? And these are all sort of some of the fundamental problems. So a lot of it is about speaking in a language that people that work with you understand to convince them of the benefit. The other thing is, I guarantee in every company you work for, there'll be an ally that you'll have. There'll be someone to go talk to who gets this. And whether it's the technical person who's in charge of areas, or it's whether it's someone in a sort of respected position around some of the roles within the company around project manager, there'll be something in your company, whether big or small, there'll be allies that you can actually latch on to. And I think that's one of the things that is helpful when you start to craft sort of the message on where you want to go, is to look at how is this going to change us as a company? What are we going to do differently before versus after? And we had lots of conversations about that early on. A lot of it was about trying to be effective engineering group, right, as opposed to an efficient. Lots of people think Agile equals efficient, and actually it does as much or more for making sure you're not wasting time and money, right? And you're spending energy in the right areas, and you can pivot and learn from things you're doing. Agile's a lot about learning and a lot about collaborating to get the best result. And it's not about just being efficient and do things really quickly or trying to streamline processes. It's a lot about actually trying to make sure that we do the right things that are meaningful to our companies. And by and large, a lot of software companies don't do that. A lot of software companies build a lot of stuff. So this goes back to things like budget and spending and stuff like that. People always go, wasn't it really expensive? Well, we spent, I don't know, probably about $500,000 to $1 million getting bootstrapped in sort of the practices and getting some consulting in. I hired Andrew. And there's a bunch of people that came on board. I spend $1 million or more every 2 weeks in engineering. So you have to imagine that it's way more expensive to have a process that's broken and not producing things that are meaningful to people, that we have a bunch of people that aren't collaborating effectively together to build great work. It's way more expensive in 2 weeks of my time than it is on what it cost me for spending for an entire year of just investing to get people where they need to be. Right? So you're just thinking about the cost model trade-offs. It's very expensive if you aren't working well together. So we talked a little bit about before versus after. We also did some things where we coupled it with the way we actually release our software. So a couple things that we wanted to change around our behaviors, right? When you start up, there's lots of things about your behavior. You cheat a lot in early stage transitions, right? Probably everybody in the room has gone through the cheating aspects of it, where you're faking it, right? So you might have some particular sprints, and you might have some particular work that you want to get done, but you really are doing things like hardening sprints, or you're working beyond the particular schedule, and you're not really completing work or deferring, right, work in an effective way. There's lots of aspects of sort of cheating and how you behave. There's lots of things like bad interpretation of metrics. In fact, lots of people put Agile and things like Scrum in because they want to track everybody, right? They want to go, I want to understand all what our velocity or throughput is, right? I want to know how much work can we get done. Those are the wrong reasons to do any of it, right? And lots of things like those are useful byproducts that help optimize and improve team improvements, but they're certainly what everybody sort of jumps to. So it's always about the conversation of what are we going to get out of this? And I think the things in the room, you all know this as well as I do, right? It's about being able to be more adaptable, right? It's the collaboration as opposed to cooperation. So we have lots of people who cooperate together. That doesn't mean they're actually solving the problem together as a unit, right? So the cooperation aspect ultimately means that, early stages, a developer doesn't really care what QA is doing, even though they're on the same team. A QA person doesn't really care how things are going to get deployed. The developer doesn't really know what the real world scenario of the software running in production looks like. They don't know anything about that. They know they're, again, siloed job. And that's different than, hey, I've got a perspective on how we want to collaborate and what that actually means to making this a better solution for customers, because ultimately it's always about the customer. And we didn't have things like, we didn't have an effective sort of design team that was integrated in, so we've improved some of those things as well. But some of those challenges are where without the collaboration, you're not working better than the sum of the parts, right? And so you sort of explain that, hey, if I can get ahead of testing understanding, and I can even have the developers be more responsible for testing, because that's one of the practices you want to have. You want to have that TDD and BDD kind of testing models. I can get more people solving the problem so that we're not going to run aground and find things later in the cycle. And if you want to talk about pure things that motivate people from an executive perspective, it's cost. Oh, if I find a bug way late, or if I didn't actively think about the problem when I did it, I'm going to have to rework a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to have to spend a whole bunch more money. Spend $1 million every 2 weeks, right? So if I have to spend 6 weeks fixing something that I didn't do up front, thinking about more effectively, then it's going to cost me a bunch of money, right? So a lot of it is about how do you get people on side with that, and mostly that's the language that they use, right? So you want to be thinking about the things that are meaningful. Adaptability is one, collaboration is another, right? The whole responsiveness to actual customer demands, right? So you get into a 2 weeks cadence, for which is what we're on 2 week sprint cycles. We can find a bug and fix it and deploy it before customers even know that it's a problem, right? We can get it into test systems, we can do things faster. But that takes a lot of effort to get there, and it takes a lot of behavior change to get there. One of the big things I sold to our customers about what we were doing around Agile engineering was sort of small batch changes are always by default more quality and more thoroughly understood, more accurate to make sure the requirements are going to meet the requirements, and so we can get feedback loops going on more effectively. So we do things like we'll do dev testing, we'll shove some dev code in front of a customer and they'll see it, right? And I find those kinds of things, showcasing those kinds of wins to executives about, hey, we demoed this prototype code that we're working on this 2 week cadence, and we showed them the last 6 weeks of work that we did. We've been working with them, and they've been thrilled about it. Those things, everybody wants to be a superstar to customers. Everybody wants to be responsive. Everybody wants to be collaborative. Everybody wants to be the kind of thing, the sort of the best software kind of minded company that you can imagine. Nobody has a goal where they want to be a crappy software company. So showcasing things like that also seem to have a pretty positive outcome for us. Right? And say, hey, we can turn around and test some of the things, ideas we're doing faster because we're doing this regular cadence. We know where we stand in our plans overall, right? When we look at the particular cadence of things, a lot of problems we had early on, and still sometimes do, right? Agile means I can't plan anything, right? And I assume the room is well educated enough to know that isn't the case, but you still run into it, especially in developers and testers and other folks, designers, where that's the thing that it means to them when they first start. Depending on when they come out of school, that's the kind of thoughts. And from a mature organization, a mature leadership perspective, that isn't the case. But that's what a lot of people get to. And those kinds of things are the detractors, right? So I can't count into the number of conversations I ran into, executive conversations with my CEO who said, hey, I've just been told by developers we can't actually plan anything. Well, what the hell is this switch to Agile about if we can't actually know what we're doing? That seems like it's just random. And so then you have to sort of like get ahead of those conversations and talk a little bit about while the plan's adaptable, the direction is not. Right? The direction is understood. It's not a random thing. and the plan's adaptable to get to the end state, and we might actually stop something and change direction when we find it's not actually legitimate, but it's purposeful as opposed to just sort of happening to us. And so that's some things that sort of came up and had some pretty clear challenges around it. When we talk about things that we coupled with our agile engineering practices, one of the things we did is we also changed our release cycle. So we were a once a year, twice a year kind of company, right? And you can do it any way you want. But I found this particularly effective when we shifted to, and startups have this is easy for them because they often live in this world, where you ship frequently, right? And shipping frequently also then bridges the agile engineering aspect with the aspect of customer success, right? So agile engineering changes are for us as a team, right? Building and coding things. It's got sundry benefits outside the company, but one way to make it actually really tangible is actually to turn it into, we're going to make this the way that we produce our software and release our software on a constant basis. We're still on the journey trying to get to pure continuous integration, right? Where every code check-in gets rolled to production, and we'll probably be another 2 or 3 years before I get to that point. But those are that's sort of my nirvana for a couple of reasons. One, I'm in a frequent cadence around my sprint plans and doing things on a regular basis and doing all the good behavior of we're doing retrospectives and we're having conversations about what needs to change, and we're data stand-ups remove some of the barriers we've got going on. Those people get that. My engineering teams, I think I'm looking at Nick and other people, but I think people get the benefits of that. So it's not really for them that we're doing that, but to make it again a real thing for how it impacts just the organization as a whole beyond engineering. Lots of people think we're going to do agile and that's going to be the development group, and the development group is going to be agile, and then you're sort of screwed because the rest of the company doesn't feel like they have a stake in that. And so one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that the rest of the organization felt the change with us. So we put both sort of a second go at being an agile development shop, where we were specific about, hey, let's get to our 2-week cadence. Hey, let's be honest with ourselves and kill our hardening sprints, because we were doing them all over the place. Let's fix our builds, because literally I had weeks go by where our build system was broken and we didn't have something we could actually ship. And so we wanted to change the behavior of, we're going to ship every month, say. Let's pick our cadence. And our month is going to have 2 sprints in it, so think of that plan for what you're doing engineering-wise. And then with the executive team, it became, okay, well, if that's true, if we're shipping things every month, we need to actually change some of our behaviors or the rest of the organization that actually, our documentation people who are in the room have to understand what we're doing every month. We have to plan to actually get it rolled out to customers. We have to maybe enable sales to let them know what's going on. So a whole bunch of other behaviors have to change. And it sort of forces everybody else into the sort of agile context of, I can't be the serial process at the end waiting for everybody to finish and then I can do my job. He goes, no, you absolutely have to get in parallel doing some of these things with us. And hey, the nice consequence that you're part of our team doing all this. We are the team. We're the extended team, right? And we're not just engineers. We're not just testers and designers. We're documentation people, or we're deployment people, or these kinds of things. We've got to figure out how we're going to roll these teams up together. And oh my goodness, there's things that come up of, hey, this isn't well understood enough to be able to put it out to our community, right? Or for our community. Okay, what do we need to do? Right? And we're still working on it. We've still got some pretty clear challenges there, but we're getting better. And we're much better than we were, I'll say, 3 years ago. So a lot of it is about how do you, again, tie it back to a meaningful thing both for your users, and if you tie it back to a meaningful thing for your users, one of the benefits are them. So again, seeing their feedback manifest faster in the product that we're working on. Seeing the adaptability of, hey, we need to change some plans. We're not actually meeting your needs. Small batch kind of work where, hey, we're doing these small incremental chunks of work, regular chunks of work, because we want to get your feedback, we want to understand where we're going, and we want to maybe work with you together. Those things all are good things that help make the argument with the upper management to say, this is what we want to do, and why we want to do it. But I think the biggest challenge that I've run across in any of these things is the getting bootstrapped. And mostly it comes back to misconceptions around what Agile means, because everybody has a different definition, right? And some people go, I'm Scrum, only thing is Scrum, it must be Scrum where it's not. And I find the extremisms of those things, where they're absolutes, generally set you back quite a bit. So I'm not an extremist around these things. There's value in the practices and how you adopt them and the recommendations of what they pursue and what they recommend you do. But I find that the black and white rules often lead people to become catastrophically either aligned or misaligned with it, and then you have to go, and an agile working organization isn't where 2/3 of the group are working great together and the other third are either bitter or quitting on you. That isn't necessarily helpful. So I find those things are some of the big challenges, especially and almost never have I met any development people that have been super unhappy with doing that kind of work, and had some that were I'll say a little bit off on what they thought their roles were, what the team success looked like. So that comes up, this whole persistent. I've met developers, and I'm sad to say that they exist, where they're like, I don't have any responsibility to testing our software, right? And some of those people are, attitudes have to change. Some of those things take a long time, but in general, the devs, test, design people, product owners, whatever you want to call them, right? They've always sort of got why we want to do it. And the thing that matters to the business overall is what your results are of the change you make. And so we've done a whole bunch of work to try and make that valuable for our customers and hence valuable for them. I think that in those kinds of challenges, like we did a bunch of things. We hired consultants, we hired Andrew. A lot of it is finding the common things that you believe in as goals, right? So when I have conversations, I had conversations with support. This is one of the groups of the support organization started from a position of we can't do things monthly. This is crazy. We're going to be too behind, and it's going to be impossible to do, right? And you go back to the fundamentals of what's the goal. Our goal is to try and get our bugs fixed faster, right? And be more capable of that. We want to make sure that the quality of our product is higher, and doing small batch changes, right? Where we're doing two week segments of work as opposed to big projects with lots of project management overhead that never end on time ever, right? We think we can be more effective and assured that when we do this work, it's the actual right work and the result is good. And they're like, oh, okay. And then you do that a few times, and they're like, oh yeah, this actually worked out decently, right? And you sort of build on your successes. But you have to find the common goals between you all, and speak in the language or have empathy for the situation that they're scared of. Because most of the people are worried about it for a reason. And they either have misconceptions of what it's going to mean for the change in their job, or they're going to have particular real conceptions of something that's happened to them and burned them in the past. So understanding that and having those kinds of conversations about, well, we have the same fundamental goals, that we care about what customer success looks like, and we think it actually looks like getting better feedback from them faster. I think it's better quality results than when we look at code we produce. That we actually are more flexible about these things. We can actually plan more effectively, and we are not going to waste money if we invest in the wrong thing. We're going to find those things and change it quickly. Most people, I've never met someone who said, yeah, I don't think that's reasonable, right? And I've lived through the long 18-month, heavily project managed kinds of work, and I've never had a successful project in that, and maybe I just worked with less effective project managers, but I never had one where we started was thinking we were going to end is where we actually ended, and it wasn't a hell last 6 months to get there, right? So it's a little bit about distributing your pain, and a little bit about working and sharing that pain and trying to find use the best expertise available to you as a group to be successful. There are some things that we think that might be useful for our next stage, which is we still incent people individually. I think that's a thing that will change over time. I'd like to give people bonuses as a team, or not. Individual bonuses are good, but they cause that, again, everybody falls back to successes if I'm successful, and these other people, then maybe they're not successful, right? And that doesn't affect me because I still get my bonus or I get my promotion or whatever. So there are stages that we can go further where it goes back to how do we make the understanding of team success be relevant. And we've still got a lot to do, I think, because I think there's lots of journey for us to still get through. Like, engineering might be working great, but I still think we've got some interface points where they're challenging, right? When we talk about it in the context of, let's say, documentation even, because I know that I don't always produce the right kinds of material for people to absorb. And some of it's also about being mean and calling us on it in ways that are respectful, but not unchallenging, right? So, again, it's interesting where you go through sort of like early stage storming and you do agile teams where people are really uncomfortable talking about the things that are their barriers, and they're talking about things that are their the things that are negatively impacting them because it's calling someone out, or it's showcasing they don't know what they're doing, or don't have a way to solve this. And we're all, the society, brought up to know that we're supposed to know all the answers, and that's a load of shit. And I think we sort of, unfortunately, are affected by that in the way we collaborate with others. So one of the things that also seems to be important, and one of the things that I think I've seen a lot of executive people do, is the role modeling bad behavior or punishing people with metrics, right? So a couple things. Role modeling behavior, I'm going through this now, even now, where I've got a lot of people, when I talk to an organization, I say, of the things I'm going to want you to be excellent at, quality is number one, and scope can change to accommodate that, right? So if you can't get what you need to do done and be proud of it, then we're going to change the scope of what we're actually going to say is finished, or like ship it in another 2 weeks or whatever, right? There's always a way to be able to progress that. But I still have people who are, even though I say the opposite thing, completely beholden to time. Right? They're like, wow, but I need to get this done because this is the time. We have a user conference coming up in July, and we have to get it done for July. Well, is it going to be terrible? Is it going to be bad? Well, yeah, that's not going to be what we want. Then don't do that. Right? And some of it's just about how you role model that behavior. Because lots of people can say lots of things, but clearly there are sometimes when I don't always exhibit that. I focus on a time frame or something. I say something off the cuff where people sort of go, and it doesn't actually care what time it is and talk about it as much. Right? So a lot of it is about how are you and other people are role modeling what you're talking about. Because it isn't always what you say, it's what you react to, or how you or what kinds of conversations you have, and what sort of values you put out there. And the more you can get critical mass of, I'll say, go back to allies, talking about the things that matter to you around why you're doing it, right? We're doing this because we want a better end result. So better end result means that we don't force the time conversation. And I still run into the very real problem of people go, when is this done? When is this done? And I know that I can't say the words of, it'll be done when it's done. That doesn't work, right? But I can go through and articulate, well, these are the kinds of things that we think matter, right? We've done some user tests and we've shown that the work is not where it needs to be. So we need to spend another 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks getting a better understanding or improvement on that because we've gotten some really good feedback. Oh, okay. Because ultimately I want us to be successful. I don't want to ship something that costs me $1 million every 2 weeks I put into it, right? That isn't going to be worth something to someone. It's the most demotivating thing in the world to ship stuff that nobody uses. And so a lot of it is about how do we role model that in every conversation. And frankly, this is one of my challenges, and Andrew helps quite a bit with these kinds of things, where you have 15, 20, 100 conversations of this is why we want to do this, and this is why it's valuable, and then it takes one to undo that. Like it's just a boom, back in. Or a lot of people want Agile and with metrics. Show me how much throughput you have. How many features are you producing this week, right? This month, this year, whatever. Right? What's the number of features? What's the number of user stories? How many story points is this? Why is that team slower in the number of story points it does than this team? This team's maybe not as good as that team. All of that stuff. We have to be the bastions of fixing that misperception. And there's lots of things you know as well or better than I do, right? Like, team comparisons around velocity is just impossible. Right? It's stupid. But that's where everybody starts. And I've had 5 or 6 conversations with our CFO and CEO, who are really smart guys. When I first came on, they said we need a way to track the efficiency and throughput of the organization. And I said, yeah, you can't do it. And Andrew said, yeah, you can't do it. And every 6 months, like, yeah, we really need to still have a metric for how much we're getting done. Yeah, well, that's really hard to determine. Like, you can't really, like, the problem scope and scale changes. The team composition is different. We might lose people, and like if somebody might shift a team and move someone around. Like, I can understand a team and whether it's improving in isolation, but there's no way I can ever do something that makes any sense for the organization. And like, yeah, I don't believe that. We need to figure that out. And they go talk to our investors, and they're like, yeah, our investors say that's impossible. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And then we bring in someone else, and they say, and they ask the question again, hey, we need to have this sort of metrics so we can understand how people are doing. And they're like, yeah, that's not possible. And they're like, damn it. And they get really frustrated because that's what they want. They're, especially people in finance, right? They're like, everything has to be measurable and computable and comparable, and that's the way we know things, right? That is definitely an industrial age kind of viewpoint. It isn't the way that we do software. It isn't the sort of what I would say the creative science of software, where, and Andrew has some really good views on this, where we don't even understand how to solve this problem in the context of our company, or maybe no one in the world has solved this problem before. How is it possible that I can accurately guess how much effort or time this is going to take me? Impossible. All I can do is iterate through the problem and get as much understanding and expertise into the problem as early as I can, right? And they get that, and you say, hey, this is a problem that has never been solved before, or this is a problem that no one in D2L has ever solved before. And we need these people in this mix to figure out, because we think we understand the problem, but we think that only represents a portion of the problem. So we need to do this better. Those are the conversations that are like, oh yeah, I sort of understand what you're talking about. But it's interesting, if you don't call that out explicitly, it's something that doesn't come through. Right? They just think you're sort of, you're hedging, or you should know because, again, we're some omniscient oracle that all understands how all software is made. These are the things that sort of cause you problems. And it's hard. Like, I don't know, Andrew, you probably got lots of tools, and I know you and I continue to have the conversation around metrics. There's lots of ways to do that. One of the most effective ways I've seen to deal with the bad metrics behavior is actually hand them information that is actually useful to you of what you want them to understand about how you're doing, right? So rather than them responding to people that are asking for metrics, you can say, hey, that can't be represented in this way because we don't think that that's you can't compare, or all problems are not equal, so you can't look at the velocities between teams or whatever. But here's something I can do for you. I can show you some more visibility to how our quality is improving, or how our user acceptance is higher, or our NPS score or satisfaction of our users is higher because of this kind of feedback cycle, this tight timing that the engineering organization, because they adopted the particular agile behavior, can now realize. Those are the kinds of conversations that get past that, because you'll never get people off the bad metrics conversation unless you give them something else to chew on that is delightful in a way that they can say, oh, we are doing the right things. And so that's been one of the big things, is finding what matters to people. The best thing is, and there are people in the room, right, advocates for this kind of stuff, right, are abound. Again, 20 years, no one will ever, this won't exist because, or it'll be at a higher order level beyond what we can possibly imagine now, because everyone will get it. But it's because we think software is an assembly line, right, that we run into the problems where executives don't understand. Andrew has a really good analogy. I think this was you, Andrew, right? When you talked about software as gardening, right? Or someone else I think you referenced that talks about that. But that feels much more reality. Right? You can put as much energy into it, and you can work really hard. You can measure it and track it. It doesn't mean the tomato plant's going to live or die. You can't control it. the only way we get there is by sort of this constant refinement of how we behave. And so showcasing your wins is probably one of the best things to get people on board with agreeing with you and helping you. Finding your allies, super, super important. Because if you don't find your allies, or you don't get them on side with you, a lot of the conversations all will be against you, right? This whole support thing, when it started, it was very much, no, we're not going to do that. And we said, well, we're going to actually ship our software more frequently, and you have a huge role in that success to play with us. We think that's going to be good for these reasons. And they're like, well, yeah, those are good things. Okay, what do we need to do? And then worked out how that was going to work together. Getting engineering folks and testers and designers who understand the value of team success versus not is a big deal. And that's about hiring well and making sure the culture thrives. And I think, again, this is all stuff that I've known people that have done this for other companies. I know people that consult on this. Often having an external person come in and they pay, the executive pays $200,000 for that consultant to come in and tell you how it should be. That often gets you more traction than your internal people. And that's frustrating as hell. Because I've been there. It's like, but we don't need to spend this money, but sometimes it needs a catalyst, and sometimes that's the catalyst. And so, again, we're on I think another probably journey of a couple more years before it becomes so and not a thought in the way we behave. We do things like we're aligned with team compensation and team success as opposed to individual success, where we have a thorough practice of having our development managers be so comfortable with understanding what their team is capable of, right? My endeavor is that each of those managers that work in that world go on and are more successful at their next company than when they choose to leave D2L because of the work that we've done in the context of how we build software. And a lot of that is understanding how well you're doing. Right? If you have people that aren't interested in changing how the practices that got you where you are. They aren't necessarily the same practices that are going to take you forward. And if people aren't interested in changing that, including your executive, sometimes that's hard. Right? There are some people I've met that you cannot convince. I do not work for those companies anymore. That's one of the challenges, right? When you are all executives in your own companies, I would expect you all to be that, since you value it. And then the other thing is, though, I am reasonably well versed in the stuff that we are doing. I am by no means an expert, and the thing that I have in Andrew, which I love, is I have a constant sort of reinforcement of the best thinking that's changing, right? Because this is the thing. When I did Agile 3 or 4 times at OpenText, where I was before, we were doing Scrum, all in on Scrum. Right? Scrum, and we even renamed it and named it something else, but it was essentially Scrum, and if it wasn't Scrum, then it wasn't right, and all the early stage maturity things that cause you problems. I have different opinions about all that now because I've done it a couple more times, and I know that the evolution of thinking is changing constantly. So one of the things we're about to change at D2L is also that talking about our success criteria. So the success criteria of an Agile team is not that they are finished their coding and it's been tested. It isn't that it got actually deployed and is usable by a customer. It's actually, did the customer think it was an excellent set of work? So what criteria are we judging it by? How are we measuring it? Are we instrumenting for that to do that? Is that transactional NPS? Is it something else that we're actually measuring? Because ultimately that's the only thing that matters, right? And so a lot of these things are about our journey as well, and sort of changing the behavior of what we look at as a success for the team. And so lots of interesting things going on. I think that from the perspective of a few other things that have helped, like around executive buy-in, one of the things that surprised me and how valuable it was is we record all our sprint demos, and then I can share them. Surprisingly, that actually makes a big difference. Like, hey, have you seen this cool thing where we did this with this sprint? They're like, oh, that's amazing, right? And CEO like actually spends a bunch of time looking at that stuff, right? Or hey, here's some stuff that we have a dev system. Here's some of the new stuff that we've done in this sprint. What do you think? Right? So it keeps them sort of on the leading edge of what's changing in the organization. And I think one of the things that the executives fear the most is losing touch with what's actually happening in the organization. So the more transparent you can make it, and you can do it with really cool assets like sprint demos, you can do it with output of retrospectives to say, hey, this is what we learned. This was worth doing, and this is what we learned about it, right? Because the sort of the currency in software development that I think is meaningful is what have you learned about your user, or what have you learned about how you implemented it, or what have you learned about things, about the work that you're doing. So the more that you can showcase even those little assets, gets people more and more excited about that you're doing the right things. And so I found those things to be invaluable, surprisingly, much more so than I thought, right? Even like as silly as here's what we learned good and bad about retrospectives. Because it all goes back to, I can always get our CEO on the same page as me about, you want to improve the company, right? And he's like, well, yeah, great. Here's what we learned this spring. Here's something we didn't know. Look at this cool thing that we're doing. We're not done yet. Look how it's progressing. And you know what? If you want to, here's all our recordings for week over week over week. So you can go back and look when we're every spring. You can go look at that. And those things are emotionally more connected for him than looking at any metrics that are looking at anything around the story points that were completed. It's wow, I see our future of our products evolving. I see us more and more connected to our users. I see us actually learning things about how to do things better. We're not stagnating. Those are the things that matter the most to him. And I think the more that you can showcase that, the more you get buy-in from anybody. Right? And those things often seem to be artifacts that are useful to the team only, but they're so far beyond that. And I'm sure other people have done that before as well. I don't think by any stretch that we're the trailblazers in that form. But I've been amazed on how effective that has been about getting people feeling like we're doing things that make us a world-class software organization. So that was about 40-ish minutes. There's probably a whole bunch of questions you can ask me that I can hopefully even give you more details on. But yeah, so maybe open the room for questions if there's things you would like to talk about.
What's your experience in difference the way you apply Agile by the project size or the domain? You know, it's a web or a desktop project or green or brown project.
Yeah. So generally we've been fairly consistent, right? So like we do mobile apps and we do server infrastructure and we do web applications. We do a mix of different things. We've been pretty consistent. I think the biggest challenge has been the mobile group wants to go faster. So they want to do things, they want to go even faster, right? As an organization, I'm really trying to get to the point where I do and I'm trying to decouple the releasing of software from the cadence of how much we sort of package and ship it, right? So they want to go, like mobile apps, they want to iterate every day and they want to sort of get down to that. But I would argue that for it to be a meaningful theme of work, it probably has to be some regular cadence, and 2 weeks seems to be the cadence where you can sort of get a cohesive theme with a team as opposed to a daily thing or a weekly thing. So we've been mostly just pushing for everybody's consistently on 2 weeks. Mostly we do that because we want to line up with what does that look like for our customers to take it and absorb that work. I do think that depending, the parts where I think it would be harder would be hardware. If you deal with hardware, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know how that works. Maybe Greg has some things in the room where he's got some comments on from extended days or whatever, Neil. But yeah, hardware I think is where that starts to break down. But software, I think as long as the cadence is a regular one, and you've got some cohesive like theme you're going after for each sprint. I think it's good. I think when we started, people were arguing, should we do 8-week sprints or 6-week sprints or 4-week sprints or 2-week sprints or 3-week sprints or 1-week sprints, and it was all debated. Anything more than 4 weeks feels very long, and a week seems too frequent, and so we just sort of said, let's go over 2 weeks. We also drew a lot. One of the things that I found helpful is if you also showcase, because this is like industry best practice, right? This stuff that we're talking about. If you showcase being in the same class as other companies doing really great work, so I reference a lot of Google conversations, I reference a lot of Netflix conversations, I reference a lot of Etsy conversations about, hey, this is one of the reasons we do our particular model for releases is because Google uses that for Chrome. And it's not a D2L specific special thing. No, other people in the world are doing this. In fact, some of the best people in the world that my CEO looks up to go, oh, they're doing that. Well, then it's great that we can do that too, right? Not everything has to be an invented here sort of question. But hardware is the one that I wouldn't have a good answer for. But the rest of them, software-wise, it feels like you can pick and probably be pretty good as long as you've got a theme to it all. Yeah.
So while doing Agile developments and doing more frequent releases, I've seen a couple different approaches for protecting your customer from work in process.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned?
So we've got a bunch of different mechanisms to control configuration of things. We're actually now just looking at an external tool to do essentially feature flagging. So and again, that's a sort of a mixed thing, right? Where I said, hey, we want to go feature flagging not just to control work in progress and sort of flag it out of the build line, right? But also potentially at some point enable test scenarios or trials, or be able to do things where we potentially do a user study and some usability analysis on things, right? So it allows us to do a bunch of different things, again, sort of user-centric. If it was just, and I had this conversation just so the team was starting to do this work, if it was just about hey, we want to be able to flag off and stop work in progress from going out the door, that's a good reason, but it's not a good enough reason to get everybody on board with it. So then it became, okay, here's the other benefits we can potentially get using the same kind of mechanism. We can do A/B testing. We can subdivide our install base by a set of people who are on the new code versus the previous generation code. There's all kinds of things we can do. And that conversation is the thing that goes, wow, yeah, we need to do that. Absolutely. So we do some level of feature flagging at the moment to coordinate enough. Now, we've cheated. We feature flagged our interface points off, but not all our code. So I had a pretty serious product issue at the beginning of January, where we had a bunch of code that got integrated into our basically a trunk line, right? Like just one main line that we integrate everything to. That we had to then remove that code, rebuild it, and redeploy it. So it wasn't flagged. And probably the visibility to the user was flagged on and off, but the actual code I couldn't turn off. And so what could have been an hour-long rollback kind of behavior took me 8 days. And that's bad. And then we had a whole conversation of, we're going to get serious on this feature flagging thing because this can't be the way that we do this.
I'm reminded of an architecture change that we went through, and controlling that became exceedingly difficult. And I'm curious to see if there was some wisdom there, other than running it as two separate projects or different code bases.
Yeah.
Which
so
consumed an enormous amount of
I wouldn't do that either. Yeah. So it really becomes like the safety aspects of it, and how do you effectively decouple it. When you start getting down into the really nitty gritty about things like feature flagging, I've had the conversation. I don't know if we're gonna get there, but I've had the conversation of even bug fixes or things like code removal, right? So we're like deprecating and tech debt. Even those might need to be feature flagged because there might be some unforeseen dependency that we don't understand. I've got a little bit of problem because I've got a 15-year code base that I would say I've got a handful, maybe 2,000 people who understand the full thing. So I've got a lot of developers who, and test coverage is low, right? Well, I'm selling D2L. But so the test coverage is low, so people make changes, they don't always know the dependency impact, right? And so the only way to solve that problem is to flag the whole change on or off, right? So that they can undo something if they've gone awry. Just to the point though, that was one of the changes we did make, and it was painful. It was painful. We had, we used to do lots of branches, and we'd have really like long merges to back into a main line to build. It was brutal. Now we pretty much build against one main line of code. We have branches, but they're fairly short-lived, and we continue to push that. I went from times where I did not have a working product build for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, to now we have one. I've got several today, right? So a lot of that is about things like getting better continuous integration pipeline and things like that, to better integration framework for hooking your tests and those kind of things. And these are all good behavior changes that are driven out of, hey, if we need to do a fast cadence, like a 2-week cadence for these things, and at the end of 2 weeks we need to say we're ready to go, I have to change my behavior significantly. And a lot of that came out of, hey, we want to be agile. But more than just agile, we also want to be able to get to the point where we're confident what we're shipping. And so we can be comfortable after we've spent our time in the sprint that we can actually ship that if we want to. And it doesn't mean you have to. It just means that was it turns out we do want to do that. But that was the behavior you want to get instilled, and the thinking you want to get instilled. So then it gets rid of things like hardening sprints, or I'm not quite done at the end of the sprint, but that's okay because I know I can bleed some of that in the next sprint, and that's okay. Or I don't have a mechanism for flagging stuff off. A lot of those behavior changes became because, are you confident in what you produce well enough that you want to put it out at the end of your sprint? And that's a big change, and it changed our process, it changed our tool set, it changed a whole bunch of things. Yeah, please.
How did you deal with people who are at the stage where they're still kind of trying to get Agile right? Ones, is our team plus or minus 7, 7 plus or minus 2? Do we have the right,
mix of people or the right side?
Focus metrics, I guess.
Yeah. So there's lots of things. I wrote down a bunch of problems, right? And once you're Scrum, then therefore you're an Agile company.
Yeah.
Just doing it for R&D. You're talking about the like leadership team, or you're talking about individuals within the team?
I'm dealing with a large financial institution.
Oh boy. Okay. Yes.
Probably never going to get really Agile. But they're really focused right now on we're doing Agile, so we have to have these.
Do all these things this way,
and culture change is like one of 900 metrics, and so it's the one that's not getting any spotlight on.
Right.
Because we're.
But culture change is the thing that's going to make you successful or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how you must have in the years that you've been doing this run into people that are trying to do that, and what did you say to them to get them off that?
So I think maybe in this incarnation I'm wiser than I was in the past, because I would hope, right? Small improvements on things.
Yeah.
So I will say in the original sort of goes at it, like 8 or 9 years ago at other companies, I was not getting the significance to make or break it of culture, and now that's the fundamental thing, right? So I think the conversations I've had more recently, it's been about, it's great that we have all these sort of success metrics, but really, the method is going to evolve as you mature. So it's really what are the objectives you're trying to get to. And so if the measures are things like, hey, we've got our 2-week sprints, that doesn't mean anything. Or we have our team sizes right-sided, or our team composition is good, or
I was shocked when I saw that.
Yeah.
Sizes
right. And so everybody goes through it, like that happens. But that isn't the stopping point. That's just a consequence of trying to do other things potentially. So it goes back to what are the things that matter about why you're doing the change, I think, and that isn't team size or team composition. Ultimately, it's about, hey, we're trying to be more collaborative in these ways, and We think that we don't currently have enough people with the right understanding talking to each other. Okay, well that's a thing. Does that mean that we have to have teams that must have mandated this composition of people?
It must be in Jira.
Yeah, it must be in Jira, and it must track this, and every project look at the time logged hours and see that everybody's tasked with it. Like there seems to be ways where I hope that maybe it's finding your ally, but finding the people that realize that that isn't the objective. And in a bank or a financial institution, that's going to be really hard because they live on that,
Yes.
right? And if everything can be measured, then therefore it can be made correct. And I think because this is a cultural thing, you need to probably pick your aspects of that matter. And culture needs to be way more than 1/900th of a list of things. So that would be interesting. We could talk for another hour. I think I'd love to understand more about that. But do you have people that believe
People
beyond?
who hired us.
The people that hired you, okay. So that's good. And they aren't the people that are measuring it, though.
They're the people who are measuring.
Right. So a lot of it is the people. So here's something that might be effective, because this was sort of effective for us. Is what do you think the measure should be that you want to hand them as was what they want to measure of yours? Right? So we say, hey, if these are our milestones, and actually Andrew handed me this, which is I've been walking around the company with this. I laminated it. So this is Arlo Belchi's sort of, right? I hope you've all seen this, because this is amazing. This is a great talking about where we are in the stage of life of our company and the practices. And it's sort of divided up. There's a bunch of colored lines, and they're like checking our work, writing good code, shipping at will, knowing what to build, discipline and learning, improve as a team, right? And so there's a bunch of different aspects of these things. And they talk about different stages that you can be in, right? And would not underestimate how much me carrying this around saying, this is what we're trying to get to, and this is where we are. We're right here right now in this aspect of it, and we want to do better. And these are the next things we need to do to get there. I think that's been a remarkable, useful thing. Even though it's not Agile, this is about software engineering, of which Agile is a huge part of this. But I found that actually an effective thing to sort of talk about
And the quants would really like that, so.
yeah, the cultural behavior. But does that mean that I'm going to measure my automated deployment verification with a metric? Unlikely, I don't know. I would need to make a call on how I feel about where we're doing. But is that something I'm going to report up? No, they don't care about that. They care about the end result of no customer was ever harmed in the deployment of their software. That's what they care about.
That's what they care about.
Right? They don't care about that I got 75 of them right and 25% of them wrong. Right? They don't care.
Thanks.
Yeah. So go, Greg.
I think two things that sort of tie into what Sue was talking about. Tie back to your hauntingly familiar story about your CEO and CFO hammering you for.
Yes. Happens to all of us.
I think the thing that a lot of people in engineering and in Agile, whatever, don't necessarily understand is that outside of engineering, most of those groups can be very straightforward, right? But the tasks in most of those other groups don't include the unknowns and the creativity of writing software, right? Even if you look at something like marketing, where there is a lot of creativity,
Yep.
it's very focused, and it's more about I can write this white paper, or I can write this marketing word in 2 hours or 1 day, right? Like it's you guys have Brendan, right?
Yep.
And so talking with Brendan back at Exinda, it was like, okay, Brendan, is there ever, when we were having these conversations when he was siding on the side of the CFO and CEO, it's like, do you ever run into cases where you don't know how to do what you're about to do? And it's never.
Right.
Right? And so that whole thing about in engineering, so a number of years ago I went to Steve McConnell, Co-Complete fame, right? He every year he does this summit, and I went, and it was right around the time when he was finally adopting Scrum, right? And so his point of view was that he had now sort of seen how Scrum can be used and can give you the wonderful visibility and predictability if done right. And his point was that a company is not willing to trade predictability for flexibility, right? And then no company will ever trade predictability for flexibility. And if you look back, and he also made this point, that if you look back at the Agile Manifesto, and who created the Agile Manifesto was a bunch of developers, right? It wasn't people who understood the business. And where I think that a lot of people who want to get Agile through their company don't really understand is we're here to serve the business, right? We're here, well, the business is here to serve the customers, and we're here to serve the business to serve the customers, right? And so we have to be able to fit in that overall business environment. And we talk about how you get the rest of the business on board with Agile, because in fact, I believe that we want to push Agile as a project management practice throughout the whole company, right? And it makes things a lot more streamlined. You get docs being done as the features being done, not at the end of your waterfall project.
Yeah.
All 5 or 10 features of that release come together. You get marketing to do the marketing work as that functionality is being done, not them going, well, damn it, you said you were going to be done on May 24th. You better be done on May 24th because that's when we start, and the sales guys are going to pick it up on June 24th, and we can't squeeze us. Remember in waterfall, we used to always squeeze the testing.
Yeah.
Well, if what happens is there's this whole rest of the company that takes our output, and that's their input. And we have to understand that that happens. And when you go to Agile, when you get the developer saying, you can't tell me when that feature's going to ship, right? It just undermines the whole thing of all working together and providing the input to the rest of the company, the sales, the marketing, etc.
Yeah. So to that end, some of the things we do more of is get people involved. Again, all the things you know and love because you read it all and live it. Getting people more involved early stage, right? So it isn't a serial process; it's a parallel process. For that reason, it's better because the end result is better because you understand what other people's perspectives are, right? So you're like, oh, you can't do this because it's going to cause this downstream problem for support or whatever. Like you just sort of you get those things where you would never get it if it was just a pure development kind of work. You're right though. Like when I talk about the things that mattered, right? It's all the cases where it made a difference on why it was important to do something that was related to customer success. Every conversation, right? It wasn't I want to do this because it will make engineers happier, because, well, it will. It isn't the thing you lead with, right? It isn't, right? And so there's lots of challenges there because lots of people are like, a lot of people tackle it from the problem of this is an engineering-centric thing. And those things always seem to be where I ran on the rocks. Right? Anytime it was a thing, and I've done it a couple times now, early on, where it was everything was serialized after the point that engineering shipped it. So we were going really fast, didn't matter, right? And everybody was sort of unhappy with the way that we were sort of like just dumping stuff on people all the time. I mean, it still even happens a little bit at D12, trying to make it better all the time. But when it was just an engineering thing, yeah, that was super not effective because no one else would support you in that it was worth doing, and it wouldn't ultimately change the behaviors that you need to have change to make it be something that will be the whole company will do, right? or the majority of the community. And you're right. Andrew has a really good thing that he ran us through around. We were trying to make some trade-offs on what product thing we should be going after, and we tried to outline the risks. And one of the things that Andrew which I've used several times now just in isolation. We've identified, is this something that everyone understands? It's a commoditized thing, therefore we could probably be pretty good at estimating what that is. Like the risk is low. Like, we know. Is this something that this team hasn't done before, but the D2L as a company knows how to do it. So there's experts in the company who've done this before, but the team is doing it. Okay, that's got a moderate risk. Is it something that no one at D2L knows how to do, but in the industry it's known? All right, another level of risk and more unpredictable. We don't know how this. So this is again things like code and competence and how sure are you about what you're talking about? Or has this never been done by anyone? There's nobody in industry. There's nobody at D2L. Nobody knows how to do this, right? And I think expressing problems in that context makes it way more understandable. Hey, this thing we're trying to do with our data analytics platform around analyzing the predictive behavior of students. There's no one on the planet that's done that. So it's going to take us some time to figure it out, and it's going to take a lot of refinement and iterations to get through it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. Nobody really knows how to do that. And we're going to be first. That's awesome. Right? That's how that conversation changes. Right? We're going to be the first to do this ever? Oh, great. Well, let's make sure we get it right, because that sounds like an amazing thing. It becomes way less about can you get that done by June 4th? Way less about that. And the more pressure, obviously, on the things that are commoditized of, we know how to do this, and this team's done it before. Those things it should be on us to say, okay, I think that's achievable in this sort of time frame. But the risk sort of factor on the scale of the unknowability of the problem was an interesting one for me, and that helps conversations quite a bit, especially with people who think they understand engineering but really they don't.
Or pretending that they do so they can impress you.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
It's not cool
Hey,
for a lot of people.
I'm an SVP. I got the SVP card. That took me 3 days to do when I was a coder. So clearly, 3 days. Gee, you're a better coder than I am. It should take a day and a half.
The way technicians talk is that it perpetuates the black holeness of that whole system. When we really need to communicate effectively about stuff that we all understand.
Right.
That's the point you're both making.
And then feedback is good.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what we learned, and this was as big a problem as we thought it was, or it wasn't, and this is what we learned for next time. Like just that cycle back, I find helpful in the next conversation, in the third conversation, in the fourth conversation. That is.
It's all about communication, and maybe that's my filter here, but it's amazing.
So, I hate to break this up, because we could be here all evening and still be having great conversation. And I appreciate this because I get tiny little slices of conversation with Nick more often than you do. It's still tiny little slices. So to get an hour of his time like this is something special. So I'd like to thank you.
Thank you.
I know that we're over time, and so thanks for letting us go. I know that Dave always wants to remind me that as you're leaving, please don't hold the door open for more than 10 seconds, otherwise some silent alarm goes off and we'll all be arrested. So small batches through the door. Be very clean about this.
I'm really lucky. All I am is a support for the bunch of people trying to do amazing things, right? Like whether it's Andrew or Nick or anybody in our team doing all this work, I just get to say, yeah, that sounds like a really good thing to do. So I'm really lucky because I get to reap the benefit of us doing all these great things. I get to support them when they want to do things the right way.
So, last note, this is a wonderful mashup of the Agile Fluency model, which is James North and Diana Larson. And layered on top of that is Arlo Belshy's work about identifying the specific practices that fall into this. It's available from Arlo Belshy works for Industrial Logic. It's available on his GitHub, and I'll post a link in the message so you can find it. It's a marvelous piece of work.
It's a great conversation starter with people that are executives.
So thank you, Arlo. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you all.